Hey everybody, Danielle Hargenrader here. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Today, I'm very grateful to bring you another amazing guest thriving with type 1 diabetes. Mary Lucas was diagnosed with type 1 in 1998 at the age of 7, and despite having the disease for 17 years now, she still approaches each day with a smile and a sunny outlook. She attended Parsons the New School for Design in New York, where she studied fashion design with a focus in childrenswear. Now, in her role as community manager at Beyond Type 1, Mary loves connecting and sharing stories, tips, and tricks with other diabetics. She grew up around philanthropy and is passionate about living well with T1D, finding a cure, growing beyond Type 1, and her little French Bulldog Lola. Mary, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So as we start out here on Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator, we would love to hear about your story of diagnosis and kind of the path that you traveled back then, which we see is 17 years ago, till now. What would you like to share about that?
Yes, so I was diagnosed when I was 7, and luckily it was not too traumatic. My mom noticed really early on that something just wasn't right with me. I was having some headaches and blurry vision. I went to the optometrist and they were like, there's nothing wrong with her eyes. She might just be jealous because another kid got glasses. And my mom was kind of like, okay, I don't really know if that's right. And she obviously, I had been drinking a ton of water and going to the bathroom a lot. And just based on those few simple symptoms, my mom looked in this little blue book that she kept in our kitchen and looked up some of the symptoms and basically kind of figured out that I was probably a type 1 diabetic just from this little blue book, because it was before the internet, obviously. And they took me to Lucille Packard at Stanford, and I was diagnosed with type 1. But luckily, like I said, my mom caught it really, really early. I was this really healthy child. And so all of a sudden, when I started getting these weird symptoms, my mom noticed really early, and it was lucky I wasn't in DKA. My number wasn't too high. I can't remember what it was. And so I went into the hospital. I remember it was in November of 1998, and my little sister had just been born. So she was about 3 months old at the time. And I spent a few days in the hospital, and it was, for me, what I can remember is that it was kind of fun being in the hospital. I got a lot of presents, and people came and visited me, and, so which was great. And, of course, my parents were sort of thrown into this world of type 1 and especially because I was so young, they really had to manage my care. And I remember I was taking a bath at one point, and I saw a bottle of Johnson & Johnson shampoo, and it says no more tears, and I thought it said no more tests. And so I looked up at my mom, and I was like, Mom, look, the shampoo bottle says no more tests. And she just kind of just started looking at me and crying. So she was like, oh, honey, but yeah, and so I spent a few days there, and then went home, and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because of all the people I interview, I get wildly, starkly different diagnosis stories. That's why I always ask that, because some people like you actually say that the hospital part was fun. One of my good friends, Dr. Jody Stanislaus, she actually said that her stay in the hospital was why she decided she wanted to become a doctor, because she had such a great time there. The doctors treated her so well and taught her so much. And then I've had people like me and other people that were just like, it really sucked, got like no information. We were told horrible information, like, you're going to have your feet amputated and you're probably going to get these complications, and barely giving you any information at all. So I think it's a really important, now that, I get to interview so many people, it's a really important underlying theme that I think is important for healthcare practitioners to know, that what you say to the patient or how you treat the patient when they come in at diagnosis can really set the stage for the rest of kind of the diabetes experience. So yeah, that's a really important point. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, so you are now the community manager for Beyond Type 1. So obviously you were 7 back then, and then you went to design school, and we talked a little bit about this off air, but I'd like for you to share kind of how this came about, because it's a really cool story.
Yeah, so just to give you a little background on me, you know, right after I was diagnosed, my parents jumped pretty aggressively into fundraising. They were kind of like, you know, we don't know anything about type 1 diabetes, and if we don't know anything, how can our friends know anything? And so right off the bat, my parents started fundraising. We did a bowling party for 2 years. It was really fun. And then after that, we decided to start an event here in the Bay Area called Spring Fling, which evolved over a period of about 13 years, from just a golf tournament and sort of an evening party to be a golf tournament with a ladies' luncheon and an evening bash. And we were extremely successful in doing that and raised over $8 million for research, which was wonderful. And it was a wonderful event, and we had a great time. And so I've grown up around philanthropy and that's always been really important to me. And then we kind of decided as a family that it was time to step away from the event, and you know, we wanted to sort of go out shining on top and not sort of burn out. We don't want people to get bored of fundraising. And we decided, you know, my mother, Sarah, decided it was time to do something new, and luckily found these 3 great co-founders to create Beyond Type 1. And I came on about 6 months after that. And like you said, after they founded it, sorry. And like you said, Danielle, I went to school for fashion design. It has always been something that I was extremely passionate about ever since I think I made my first dress when I was like 5 years old out of a curtain or something like that. So I've always been really, really passionate about that. And throughout high school, I was really set on going to design school, and I thought it was the only thing that I could ever possibly want to do. And I had a great experience in New York. It was fun. It was really challenging. I learned a ton, and I'm proud of myself for getting through it. But then after that, I wasn't really finding anything that I was particularly passionate about or that I really was enjoying. And luckily, you know, Beyond Type 1 was founded, and there was a need for a community manager sort of right off the bat, or someone to work on some special projects. And, you know, just because I knew the co-founders, and obviously my mom is a co-founder and serves as CEO, I was brought on, and I just worked part-time in the beginning, and then that role sort of transitioned into a larger one. And so now, yes, I'm the community manager, was officially hired full-time on September 1st.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's what I do. And did you want me to talk about sort of what I do as community manager?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear, anything that you want to share, let us know you better. Absolutely.
Okay. So as community manager here at Beyond Type 1, I obviously deal with the community side of Beyond Type 1. And the community is something we're really important about. Beyond Type 1 was founded on sort of 3 pillars of educate, advocate, and cure. And we believe that it's extraordinarily important not only to educate both Type 1s and people without Type 1, since there's obviously so much misinformation and stigma out there around the disease, but we also want to make sure that we're supporting people who live with Type 1 and who are living well today. And one of the reasons that it was started was because there was sort of this need for a community that wasn't really being filled. And so one of our most important things is really to interact with the community and give back to the community, not only in the form of our website and resources and great stories, but also through things like our Living Beyond Instagram campaign. And so I manage all of that. I receive all the submissions, and I look through every single one of them. And I, you know, if something doesn't work, if a photo doesn't work, or I need someone's age, if they forgot something, I'll interface with those people. You know, it's funny because sometimes people will ask, they'll be like, hi, I sent in my Instagram a really long time ago. And I'm like, I'm sorry, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just that we have so many people, and I really do go through every single one. And I make sure that if it's not right, that we make sure that it's right. Because
that's what I would, just to interject, I think that's what I would call a quality problem, that you have so many people, I'll call it a quality challenge, that you have so many people that are excited to share how they are living well with diabetes. Like that is something like for me is just, it warms my heart because that's what I want to do. You know, that's why I do these interviews. That's why I share information and create free content on my sites and YouTube and all that. And it's because I want people to thrive with diabetes. I want people to kind of get rid of that stigma that, oh, well, I have diabetes, so I can't do X, Y, and Z, whatever X, Y, and Z is for that person. And so you have this outpouring of people who want to share this, whatever it is that's making it work for them. So I just think it's an incredible thing that you get to go through that. And like, as someone living with diabetes, it must be so, again, like just warms you up to see, just be surrounded all the time with people who are like, I'm doing well with diabetes. Do you think that affects your diabetes care?
Absolutely, yes. I would say that since I started working here, I have been so inspired to really take care of myself well. You know, when I was a teenager, I was not the best diabetic, admittedly. Yeah. Right here, I was dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety issues, and just didn't have great control in general. I mean, I had horrible A1Cs, and now I'm like, my God, thank you to my parents and my doctor for sticking with me during that time. But I really sort of, since then, come around and really realized how important it is to take care of myself, and certainly working here and seeing how many people are doing incredible things who have type 1, and really it's inspired me because I'm like, yes, like type 1 shouldn't hold you back no matter what you want to do, and it inspires me to take really great care of myself, and I'm just inspired, I guess, working here. So it's definitely had a positive effect on my health, and certainly just it warms my heart as well, you know, when I get just even one email from one person, you know, a mom telling me how much the Diversary card that we sent meant to them, or how much it meant that, you know, we sent them some resources, or just something simple like that. It makes me feel so good that I'm able to really help people. And that's something I love about being the community manager, is I get to interface a lot with these people who come and they're like, how do I get involved? Or I'm having this problem and what should I do? And they just want to talk or throw around ideas or whatever. It's fun for me because I get to sort of talk to a lot of people, and I get to hear a lot of experiences and things that I wouldn't know if I wasn't working in this position. So it's really cool.
And I think something that else that kind of just popped into my head while you were talking about, you know, because you said that you struggled with depression in your teenage years, which I did as well. And the more I participate in the diabetes community, both online and in person at conferences, the more I find this extremely common thread that living with diabetes kind of goes hand in hand with having some level of depression, due to the fact that we are kind of forced to be obsessed with ourselves. I mean, for lack of a better term, you know, we have to be obsessed with our carbohydrate counting and our insulin, and, you know, we have a reading that we may consider as out of range, or our doctors are telling us that we're non-compliant, or whatever the thing is. And so that is a catalyst for depression. But I mean, for me, one of the many things that kind of got me out of that over time and allowed me to not live back into that feeling was surrounding myself with other people who understood what life with diabetes was like. And so for people out there who are struggling with depression, one of the ways that you can start digging your way out of that hole is to kind of just look at other people's stuff. And I mean, there's so many resources, and I think Beyond Type 1 is such a great resource for that, because you can literally on Instagram just scroll through story after story and realize that all these people who are giving their stories of triumph now, they all struggled too. We've all been wherever you may be now. I mean, you're never alone. And the darkest times can be, you know, a source of really great strength if you take different actions and look for that help and that information, which is readily available online, and that communities like Beyond Type 1 are building. And I think that that's a huge resource that people may not even understand how helpful it can be. No,
absolutely. It's funny. Some of the most popular pieces on our site are the ones about depression, anxiety, diabulimia, you know, all those really hard topics that unfortunately aren't covered a lot of places. And for whatever reason, just for fear, or for fear of losing funding or donations, because you're talking about something that is sort of stigmatized, especially, you know, mental health. It's definitely stigmatized. And you know, we definitely want to bring those stories forward, and that's one of the reasons I'm so open about the struggles that I have that I've had, is because I'm like, you know, you can struggle but you can, you know, overcome things. And we have some really inspiring stories on our website, and even just reading those stories of how girls did overcome their eating disorders or something like that, it totally inspires me just to live better. And I love that we're really talking about the hard stuff, because it's true. You don't talk, like, diabetics have a lot to deal with. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with it, a lot of self-obsession, and mental health is so important in being able to live well, I think.
Yeah, and it's I just actually was at the Diabetes Unconference in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and we were talking about a lot about depression, and that was one of the major topics there. And it's actually interesting how, clinically speaking, there's some type of checklist that, you know, check off all these things that when they're looking for signs of really good diabetes care. And then that same checklist, I think like 22 things that are the same for having an eating disorder, those things are like mirrored, so that because we do have to be so kind of dialed into what we're eating that we become fairly obsessive about it, which then leads to the disordered lifestyle, which I think I don't think I know anybody who has diabetes who hasn't struggled with some form of an eating disorder. You know, maybe not diabulimia, but, you know, for me it was binge eating, and I didn't know about diabulimia, meaning the omission of insulin. I didn't know that was a thing back when I was doing it, which when I was a teenager, and I'm really glad I didn't, because I probably would have done it because I was 200 pounds, and I was like, I've probably been like, oh, well, that's a great way to lose weight. And then I would have hurt myself even further than I was already hurting myself. But I think that, you know, we often can get kind of pushed into this box, like, well, we're broken. And, you know, even though it's not our fault, we feel like we're a burden and we're to blame. And that's just all not true. And I'm out here trying to spread that message, and grateful that you're out here trying to spread that message as well. And the more people that are out there sharing their story, talking about the things that are not sexy, you know, eating disorders and mental health. But guess what? That's real, and we need to talk about what's real, and that's what's going to help us all heal, you know, and get to the true people that we are inside, instead of this like kind of just scattered mess of what we end up being through our experience without any help from other people. So yeah, that's awesome. So we were kind of talking a little bit, we were just talking about offline, you know, that we were just checking our pumps before. So you wear an OmniPod. I also wear an OmniPod. Did you ever wear a different pump before that, or what was your decision to kind of use that pump, just out of curiosity for personal?
Well, you know, let's see. I was on shots for a while when I was a young kid, and then I got my first pump in 6th grade, I think, and I think it was a Medtronic. I'm not 100% sure. And then throughout high school and college, I had an Animas Ping, a one-touch Ping pump. And then last year, or I guess probably a year and a half ago, I moved from New York to LA right after school, and I lived there for a while. And I just wanted something different, I think, from my corded pump. I think also it had to do with the lifestyle down there. I was really active. I was running around a lot. Obviously, you don't need as much clothing, so I found that clipping the pump to me was this sort of couldn't really find anything. And this was also back when I wasn't always so comfortable showing off my devices and such. You know, now I wear them. I have my Dexcom on my arm, my OmniPod on my arm. Yeah, exactly. And I like anyone who wants to ask me about it, talk about it, I'm fine. But I didn't used to be like that. And so the thought of carrying a pump around on me, I was like, ooh, I don't know about that. Yep. And I had also I had actually had been a nanny for one of our other co-founder, Juliet de Bobigny. I was a nanny for her son, Nicholas, for a little bit, and he has type 1, which is obviously her connection to diabetes, and he had an OmniPod. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, it was my first time seeing it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I can control this from a little thing that looks like my cell phone. I don't have to record. This is amazing. So I got really excited about it and decided to try it out. And so far, I loved it. It's been great.
Awesome. Yeah, I have that same experience. I like to often ask people what they like to do to manage, because I know tons of people who are doing great on MDI, people that love their pumps that have, tubing. And for me, it was just, I'm 25 years in now with diabetes, but I went 22 out of my 25 years, maybe 21 now, because I think I've had my pump for 4 years. Sometimes it gets a little fuzzy, but I was just like, I will never be tethered. Like the thought of being tethered to a pump was just not an option for me personally. It was just not a thing that I was willing to even try. So as soon as I found out I actually got my Dexcom first, and I was really, like you, conscious of wearing sights. I was just like, oh, well, but if I don't have a sight on, I can just be free and this and that. And I would, wear my sights like hidden away. But now I'm just like, oh, here's my Dexcom, like whatever. I haven't put my pod on my arm yet, but mainly just because I really like wearing it on my lower back. It's very comfortable. But once I got my OmniPod, I was just like, this is where it's at. Like, I love it. It's so easy, like, to manage, and I don't have to keep injecting myself all the time. So I just really find it interesting that, everybody has their own way that they kind of get along. And I think that's great that we have so many options. And, people out there, I always want them to know, it's like, if you have a pump and you want to try a new pump, I think you have the right. You can talk to your doctor depending on your insurance, and be able to get a trial. Especially, I think all pump companies offer trials, with saline. So if you wanted to just try it for a week, just, don't be afraid to Google,
to test it out
and test it out.
Yeah, different things work for different people, and sometimes you're not comfortable being tethered or having a device, and if that works for you, then great, that works for you. But I guess for me, I've found that, I don't mind wearing my devices. I actually kind of like when, if I find someone, I was in LA, and I was out somewhere, and a mom came up to me and noticed my Dexcom and my OmniPod and was like, oh my gosh, my son has type 1. We've been thinking about getting the Dexcom, and I ended up having a whole conversation with her. And that obviously that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been wearing them. But of course, that's just me. And some people aren't like that, which is great. It's totally fine. Whatever works for you.
Yep, that's what makes the world go round. I have the same experience. Like there's a place in Philadelphia called the Reading Terminal Market, which is this big, bustling, like all these places to eat and little shops. And I'm down there, and I was there with actually my friend who also has diabetes, and we were down there, and we saw somebody with Dexcom, and we're like such nerds. We're like, hey, I don't know you, but we saw your Dexcom, and we just wanted to say, hey, look at our Dexcom.
Like, hey, we're buddies.
But the truth is, it's an opportunity to connect with other people if you see it that way, and you do kind of just become buddies with people, because it's like it takes that whole time of okay, well, is this person, do they get it? Like that they get it, and then all of a sudden you're just cool with that person in 2 seconds. And I think it's a really interesting conversation piece either way. It's a chance to educate people as well, because I think people are really open to being educated about it if you're willing to talk to people in a kind, gentle, caring way, instead of stop looking at my stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. So what else would Mary like to share about? Anything you'd like to share about yourself that I know you said you struggle with depression. I do like to talk to people about their struggles and their triumphs. Is there anything else with diabetes that kind of you feel like you may have overcome, or that has, shaped you into the person that you are today, or maybe given you an advantage in life, which I like to highlight that as well?
I would say, I've definitely had my fair share of hard times, and I also, I had Graves' disease, and I had to deal with that for a while, just not feeling great, and then I eventually got my thyroid fully taken out a while ago, which was great. But it's been hard, because I definitely have had health challenges, and certainly more than a lot of people, but I always just try to remind myself that I don't have it as bad as other people do. I think that even when I was in the hospital, when I was 7, I noticed the kids who were bald and obviously going through chemotherapy, through cancer, and I remember thinking just wow, I'm so glad that I'm not bald and I'm not dying in a hospital. And I know people, sometimes people say, well, diabetes is really bad and all that, and I'm kind of like, it is bad, but it's not the worst thing, I guess, it could happen. And I guess, for me, just kind of an advantage, I would say, is that it has, having diabetes has afforded me so many opportunities that I would not have had otherwise. And it's made so many wonderful connections in people. I mean, I have some really great friends now who I wouldn't have known if it weren't because we both had diabetes, or because I met them through Beyond Type 1. And it's also, like I said, I've had my fair share of hard times, but I think it really has made me stronger and more resilient as a person. And I'm proud sort of everything that I've been able to overcome. And I think it can be hard for people, especially if you're sort of in the midst of struggles, to stay positive. But for me, I'm kind of like, I just believe that fear is sort of the mind, or fear and negativity are the mind killers of this disease. And because if you get into sort of a negative place, then it can be hard to get out of that. And so for me, I just try to stay positive. But I'm trying to think of sort of I've had some, to be honest, I've had some real struggles recently with some other parts of my health. I thought that I maybe had gastroparesis or something like that. I've just been having some stomach issues, which has made it really, really difficult for me to eat throughout the day, which in turn makes it difficult to keep my blood sugars up. And sort of towards the end of the day, I always go low now. And so it's this piece that I've trying to sort of been figuring out, and I've been working with doctors and with a therapist also to figure out if it's something, kind of in the back of my head, or sort of something in my head, or if it is something more physical. And for me, it has been a real struggle because of the way that it's affected my blood sugar so much, and just me trying to learn how to deal with, maybe not being able to eat as much during the day, or knowing that I have to really force myself to eat something. So I would say that's been a little difficult recently, to be honest, but I'm working on it, and it's getting better, and I'm hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I think that, people need to hear, even people who are thriving and are doing well, we all have our own issues. But I think what you said probably is the most important thing, is that you're trying to figure it out. More than trying to figure out, you believe in your ability to figure things out. And I think that kind of attitude, no matter what the situation is, whether it's diabetes related or not, you might not know the answer right now, but you do know that you have the ability, through time, experimentation, consultation, and things like that, to actually figure out what's going on. And in the meantime, you're still going to take the best care of yourself that you can. You're still going to live your life, and you're still going to have the people that you love, and you're still going to have your interactions, even if it's not as comfortable or as you may want it to be. But life isn't necessarily always the most comfortable thing in the world. So I think that that's a really fantastic attitude that you have. And I really believe that, like you said, not even necessarily that people have it worse. It's like, diabetes sucks. Like, yeah, but the thing is that everything in life is how you react to it. It can be the worst, most horrible thing in the world, or it can be something that you end up turning into a blessing and into something that you find has given you advantages in life, depending on how you react to it, depending on how you decide the story that it means to you, because we all write our own stories in life. We all assign meanings to everything that happens to us. Well, this happened to me because of this. This person treated me like this because of this. But we're making this story up. Like, we don't really know, but this is the meaning that we're giving to it. So just like you're saying, I think it's so important. It's like, you're having some issues now. You're not giving it a negative meaning. You're giving it a meaning of, oh, well, this is another opportunity for me to overcome. And
exactly.
Sound cliche, to go beyond.
No, it's kind of like, gotta figure it out, and I'm not perfect. I am by no means a perfect diabetic. I woke up with ketones this morning, full disclosure. So, I'm not perfect, but I definitely have those hard days. I have those days where I go home and I just want to throw something or cry, and I have those times when I can't get a juice box open because my number's so low, and I just chuck it across the room because I'm angry at it or whatever. And I have those days, and I think it's okay for people to have those days and realize that not every day is going to be a good day with diabetes, but to me, it's just important to keep that general attitude of, it's going to be okay, and you're going to figure it out. Even if you don't know what's going on right now, you can persevere and get through this, figure it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. So let's go on to what you have found to be, for you, for Mary, what your top 3 tips are for thriving with diabetes.
Okay, I would say My top 3 tips. Number 1, this might sound a little silly, but it is to always have emergency sugar with me, because I have been in so many situations where I'm like, I don't need to bring a Sprite or a juice box or whatever. And then of course that's the one time that my blood sugar ends up going low. And you know, for me, I'm just like, I know it sounds silly and you're kind of like, well, duh, every diabetic should do that. But sometimes people don't, and I'm like, gotta make sure to have that juice.
I don't think it sounds silly at all, and I don't think it's a duh, and I don't think that, and that's the thing. I've actually written articles for different online sites specifically about this, and it's like this ounce of preparedness can literally save your life. Not only just save your life, but save you the panic and the craziness. And because this comes out of, my advice comes out of personal experience of when I was younger and not being prepared. But my advice for people with diabetes is this, is like, we're all busy, we all have things to do, but we also all have these things that we call smartphones, and they all have alarms in them, and they all have things that we can set calendar reminders in. So I have a weekly calendar reminder every Friday to check, so to see where my stash, if it's full. So the stash in my bedroom, in my living room, in my basement, in my car, in my purse, and no matter where else I'm going, in my gym bag, like, so anywhere that I might need to have a stash. And a stash could literally just be some glucose tabs. These actually I picked up in Europe one time, and now I order them because they work really well. And they're also really easy to carry, and they work really fast. But the point is like, check your stash once a week. The whole process maybe takes 5 minutes, like maybe. Make sure your stash is stashed up in all those places. And so no matter where you are at any time, you'll have something. Like, it sounds, like you said, silly, but I think that, I would totally guessing numbers here, but I'd say that like 95% of people with diabetes don't do that. And although it sucks to have diabetes, it is our responsibility at the end of the day. Nobody's going to come save us. Nobody's going to come take diabetes away from us. And if we're in line, like it happened to me at a clothing store, and you have a whole bunch of clothes on you, like on your arm, and you're getting ready to check out, and then all of a sudden you're like on the floor, which is something that happened to me when I was a teenager, which is kind of when I started doing this. And I didn't have anything on me.
Oh my God.
It sucks to say it, but it was my fault. Like, I mean, if I would have, I had a giant purse. I had a giant purse that I could have just had a whole bunch of glucose tabs in, but I didn't. And so, I mean,
like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah,
right.
So that's actually one of the greatest tips I've probably ever gotten. So good, awesome tip.
I feel like sort of going along with that too is just to be prepared with your supplies. You know, it's funny. Sometimes I'll mention sort of everything I carry around during the day. People are like, "You carry so much stuff," and I'm like, to me, it's important to be prepared, and that includes sort of everything that I carry with me on a daily basis and everything in my apartment. I've definitely have had those times where I've run out of pump sets because I forgot to order more, and I'm like that's ridiculous. I should not be forgetting that. It's important that I remember that kind of stuff, and so. You know, that just being prepared in general, I guess, and to go along with the always having glucose, I think it's so important for people to have a glucagon. Some people don't carry glucagons, and that is literally something that could save your life. And so I think it's extremely important for people to have that around. I mean, even if you're just by yourself, like I've had to inject it into myself before, unfortunately, but it's important.
Yeah. I've had glucagon used on me twice in my 25 years, but I was unconscious at the time. So that was when I was a teenager, and again, not taking care of myself at all. So yeah, it's scary. So let's just say tip number 1 is be prepared. Take time, set alarms, use your technology to your advantage, the same way you would have an alarm set for a meeting that you would be having, or anything else that you would actually put as a priority. Guess what? Your consciousness is more of a priority than anything else. So put it in your phone. Remind yourself. I think that's an awesome tip. So.
I guess my second one would, and I sort of said a lot of this already, but it would be to sort of try and keep that positive attitude. While knowing that not every day is going to be a good day, and you're going to have those hard days, and that's okay, and you should allow yourself to have those hard days. But I think that it's really, really important to stay positive, surround yourself with positivity. You know, there's a lot of positivity around type 1 diabetes and living well. And obviously that's what Beyond Type 1 is about. So I think just staying positive,
Yeah,
trying to stay positive.
definitely.
Would be a good one. And I would say, let's see, my third one, I guess something that I think that makes me feel good is I have my Dexcom Share set up so that my mom gets my alerts if my blood sugar goes too low. And I know for some people, it can be sort of difficult because, and they struggle with how much control to give their parents or to someone else. But for my mom and I, we've luckily worked out a system where she'll only text if my blood sugar is extra low. And if it's low and I'm okay, I'll just text her and let her know I'm okay. So she doesn't text me if I'm high, which is good because that happens more often than not. And it is really helpful. You know, she called me the other night in the middle of the night because I didn't wake up to my Dexcom alarm, and luckily she did and saw it, and I was able to get up and have some juice. So for me, it's important to sort of have that piece and to have my Dexcom and to have that sort of extra person there to make sure, you know, just in case I miss something, that they don't.
Yeah, it's nice to know that someone has your back. I actually don't. I have my Dexcom, but I don't have the Share. And I'm actually hesitant to upgrade, not because I wouldn't want to share. I would totally share with my husband and my mom, or whoever wanted, particularly just my husband and my mom, because they're not going to judge me and they're not going to bug me. They know I can take care of myself. But I'm just hesitant to upgrade just because I've heard, and maybe you can tell me, you know, if this is true or not, but I heard that for it to come onto your phone, you have to have your phone ringer on.
Oh, yeah. So for the G5, because the sensor can go directly to your phone, yes, if you want to hear the alerts, your phone has to be on loud, but you can also get like a separate receiver so that the Dexcom can also go to the receiver so that you would be able to always hear the alarms, because that's something that happened to me. I only had my phone on, you know, for a little bit, and unfortunately one of the alarms was silent once and I missed it.
Yeah, because for me, I never sleep with my phone ringer on.
I know.
I always have it off. I have 2 priority numbers in there, which are my mom, or actually 3, my mom, my best friend, and my husband. So if they called or texted, that it would allow that to be heard. But otherwise, like, I would be hearing email dings all night, and I'm like, I would never sleep with my phone. And half the day my phone ringer is off too, because I'm not necessarily expecting any phone calls, or unless I am, I'll have it on. But now that I know that I can actually get it on the receiver, which I actually don't mind having the extra receiver, maybe I'll make the switch, because they keep emailing me about it, but I've been kind of hesitant.
Yeah, no, I love my Dexcom. Sometimes people will ask, they'll be like, you know, what do you think about the Dexcom? And I'm always like, I love it, get it. Yeah. It's amazing. It's changed my life completely. You know, I couldn't imagine not having a CGM now. It's probably the most important. One of my most important tools, I would say, is definitely my CGM.
Yeah, so we're, you know, especially in the advocacy world, it's definitely a hot button issue for the affordability of it for people who don't have insurance, and also, you know, certain insurance is not covering it. You know, especially for me, I had a situation, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I guess it doesn't really matter. It's too late now. But I actually, when I got my Dexcom about 4 years ago, I had good A1Cs, and one of the things that they were like, oh, well, we kind of need to see that your A1Cs are, you know, doing poorly so that you can get approved for it. I'm like, that's like somebody like who is like really muscular and lifting weights, and then you see them lifting weights and you're like, why are you lifting weights? You already have muscles. Like, what? Like, right.
Like, no, I'm already doing well. I just want to keep doing well.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, personally, I think that a CGM should be mandatory medical equipment that anybody with diabetes has to have. But so I was like, yeah, my A1Cs are good, but I'm trying to get pregnant, which I wasn't, but I don't care. Like, I'm not trying to be like Miss Right to the insurance companies. Like, unfortunately, they don't necessarily have our best interests at heart almost ever. So I have to just, I mean, honestly, sometimes you're going to have to fib a little bit, and hopefully you'll have a doctor. Luckily, I have a really amazing primary care physician who has been my primary care physician for probably since I was 18 at this point. And she just knows that I know what I'm doing, and she writes my prescriptions. And of course I go in and she, you know, we talk, but she lets me do my thing because she knows that I'm kind of on point. And so she also signed the paper. No names. I'm not, of course, going to give out her name, but yeah, sometimes you just have to do what you have to do, fib a little bit, you know, to get what you need to get. And hopefully that will help out. Don't be afraid to stretch the truth when your health is the bottom line. And the reasoning why you can't get the CGM is something so insane that your numbers aren't bad enough. Like, again, that's like, again, makes no sense. So yeah, hopefully that'll work itself out over time. And with the advocacy of places like DPAC, the Diabetes Patient Advocacy Coalition, which again, I post about every week, but they're helping get, you know, bills passed in legislature and all that kind of stuff, which we need to have our voices heard. So yeah, awesome. So anything else that you would like to share before we kind of wrap things up here?
No, I don't think so. I think that that's everything.
All right, well, cool. So yeah, I really appreciate you joining us today. And I will link to Beyond Type 1 and any links that Mary wants you to be able to find her and or Beyond Type 1 at, she will send to me, and I will link below the video on the YouTube video and also below the video on the blog, as I always do. And Mary, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And we will catch you on the next episode of Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator. Take care, guys.